Hi, I'm Marcia Franklin. You know, sometimes the most nondescript places like this one hide the most amazing stories. For instance, the vans behind me are fueled in part by the determination of a young man who's already faced more challenges in his life than many of us will face in a lifetime. This week on the 180, meet Jonathan Amissa. In just 15 years, Amissa has gone from being an orphan on the streets of Cameroon to starting this successful medical transport company in Boise. Jonathan talks with me about what drives him to succeed and what has grounded him through the massive 180s he's had to make. Any one of them might have brought someone to their knees, but Amissa not only got up, he sprinted. And what you will hear is proof positive that just one person, one of us, can make a huge difference in a person's life and help them achieve their dreams. Be prepared to be inspired. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan Amissa, for joining me on the 180. I know you're super busy. We're kind of fitting this interview in between things, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I first want to ask you how you're doing. How are you feeling? We're in a very difficult time, all of us, but particularly in your case, you're running a business, a medical transport company, and you're right in the midst of everything. How are you doing? Tell me how you're feeling today.
I'm doing okay. I'm hopeful every day, and every day that I end my shift or every day that my employees come back, I'm safe and everything went well. So today I'm feeling really great. We had a busy day, not like before, and it seems like we're gonna have a busy day coming next week. So I'm feeling okay. With all this pandemic, I mean, it's hard, right? And there's a lot of people that's going out there and working their best, also. So I'm doing okay. I cannot complain.
You had to draw on your inner strength and your knowledge really to get you through this. You're only 26, but you've already lived a lot of lifetimes that other people haven't lived at your young age. So talk to me about some of the strengths that you called upon when you realized that your baby, your business was potentially at risk because of this pandemic. Where did you go inside of yourself?
I think about my past. I'm like, this thing's gonna be very challenging. And then I told myself, Jonathan, you have been there. This might be a COVID. You've never been in a COVID situation before, but this is another hard time that you have to deal with. And this time you're only not dealing with your personal life, but you're dealing also with other people's lives, which those are my employees, those are my patients, those are people that I work with. So what should I do? Is I dive inside myself where like take your time to think about it. But you already been there before. Hardship is not new for you, and you overcome so many things. And think about how you taught how to overcome this situation, and I think you'll be all right. So I told myself that, and I draw a picture of me um, walking in the middle of the night, running away from my grandparents, having no idea where I'm going. And I'm like, I can apply this to my business. I don't have a lot of business background. I don't I didn't go to school to study like most business. And here I am. That means I'm walking in the middle of nowhere and I don't know where I'm going. So I applied that moment that I left my grandparents' house and I have no destination but looking for a better future. And when I tell myself that, I'm like, here's what you need to do to find that place that you're looking for, to find those peace that you're looking for. So that was the moment.
Well, and we'll talk about that as well, your childhood and what you just mentioned. But what came out of that thinking and centering was you realized that you had some skills already, for instance, sewing. And so you really were one of the first people in this community to start rapidly sewing masks, not only for yourself and your employees, but for other people too. Talk about that mask making and how that came to you. You already knew how to sew from a young age.
Yes, I know how to, when I was back home, one of my survival business that I did, I like to call it survival business because that's how I get my feet on the ground when I was back in Cameroon, is to buy used clothes and then re-sew it the way that people want it. So that's one of the things that I learned when I was back in Cameroon. And when the COVID hit, instantly something came to my head. And I think my first day I made like 4 masks because like I haven't done it for a long time. I kind of forget how to cut things. So I made about 4 masks. And the next day I'm like, okay, the next day I made like 15. So the first 4, I just give it to my drivers. I'm like, okay, you have to wear this every single time. And then they told me like, yeah, a couple of people that we transport don't have masks. I'm like, oh, really? So I'm going to make more. And I started making more and more. And my weekend, it became like my hobby where like every weekend I set a goal that I have to make like 40 to 50 masks. And we make them and we have them a lot. So I'm like, what are we gonna do? Nobody know about it. Let's post it on Facebook. And I start posting on Facebook. I prioritize people who work in healthcare. I prioritize elderly people, mostly veterans and like mostly like the vulnerable population. And that's how we started. And the demands just keep getting higher and higher and higher.
And these were for free. I mean, you weren't making any money off of them. It was the goodness of your heart.
Yes. Yep. Mostly. Yeah. We're doing it for free. And everybody's like, can I buy some? I'm like, well, we're not selling them. And they're like, oh, really? And people get excited because like they're looking to buy, but then it's like, this is free. Like, can I have 6? Can I have a 4? Can I have 7? And you're like, oh, okay. I'm not
well,
sure.
Now most people have them, I think, but it was pretty amazing that you just jumped in. And again, this is a skill set that you had, that you called upon, to help you. And you mentioned that you thought back to when you were a child, and we should say that your father died when you were quite young. And then your mother sadly died as well. And this was in the country of Cameroon. And you were sent to live with relatives, but that didn't work out, did it?
Yes. My dad passed away when I was 10. And then a year later, also my mom passed away. And it was kind of devastating moment for me. And then I have nobody else to take care of me. But I have my grandparents. So I decided to go live with them. And from there, after a couple months, life kind of turned around, and that was a tough moment, and it didn't work well. It was a very abusive situation. I couldn't go to school. I was the one that had to do everything at home, including things that even I can't do sometimes, weight that I can't even lift. I have to force myself to do so I can have a place to live. Or I can have a food at the end of the day to eat if I get some, right? So that was the moment, and it was a very bad moment in my life.
And at 11 years old,
when most kids are, what would they be? Only in maybe fifth grade. You started walking. You left your grandparents' house and you started walking. Did you know where you were going?
I did not know where I was going. It was about like 6 p.m. and they say you go get water. So they give me, it's like 20 liter of gallon to go get water, like, which is gonna be like 6 to 7 miles away. So it's gonna take me like an hour or so to get back. And during that time, that was a perfect time for me to take off. And I never came back. I didn't know exactly. My destination is I want to find the closest city as possible to go to. So the closest city was about 15 to 20 miles away. And yeah, I pretty much walked in the middle of the night. I remember getting at the city. I can't remember exact time, but it was pretty quiet when I get to the city because everybody sleeping. So I end up finding like cardboards and stuff, and I find a gas station and start making friends that live on the street that maybe have parents or doesn't have parents.
If I'm correct, you ended up working for a baker. Is that correct? You found some employment working for a bakery?
Yes. Yes, I still living on the street, and I walk around sometimes. So I usually, and I don't know why I went to that bakery. I can't remember why, but I go there in the morning and I ask if I can do anything to help, like cleanings or washing clothes or dishes or something like that. And the gentleman is like, well, you can come here. We can give you a couple of breads, like it's like a baguette, like French bread, and you go sell them, and then you bring the money back, and then we give you more, and then you sell and you bring the money back. But it took me a while for them to do that. I started like cleaning wise, like, make sure all the employees' uniforms are clean, make sure like I like mop the floor, offices and stuff. And then they didn't pay me when I was doing that. They'll give me breakfast in the morning and then they'll offer me lunch. And then also I'll have dinner for free. So that's all I needed during that time. I wasn't looking for money. I was just like looking for something to eat.
Hungry.
Yeah, I was hungry.
You have an incredible story to tell. It's one that almost seems like it's in a movie to me. You were walking along and you found a passport of somebody. And you picked it up and you decided to try and find the person who owned it. And that decision really changed your life, didn't it?
Yes, and that was in the capital city of Cameroon. I moved there. I don't know anybody, but I moved there and I started a new life there as well. And one day, I don't know what happened, but I came back from running and I was walking around and I find this giant paper laying around and nobody wanted to touch it. And I grab it and I read it. It's belonged to somebody that have a French nationality. And like, okay, this is very important paper. It's a passport. So this is very important. And I mean, it's kind of late. So I wait and take it to the embassy the next day. And hopefully they're going to find the person. So, and then I was sitting there and I see the gentleman walking back and forth, and I look at the picture, I look at him, and I walk to him. I'm like, "Are you looking for this?" I didn't know that he speaks French, and then he said, "Yeah, yeah, that's my paperwork." And I handed it to him, And he said, thank you. And he said, where I find it? I say, I found it over there. And again, he said, thank you. He asked me my name, and I tell him my name, and he walked away. And a couple of weeks later, he came back, and he asked everybody, say, where's that kid that was here that gave me the passport? And nobody want to tell him what I was.
Why? They think that you were in trouble or something?
Yes, they think I'm gonna be in trouble. They think he's gonna bring the police and think that I was the one that stole, and I gotta get in trouble for it. So one of my friends like, Jonathan, you remember that passport you took a couple of weeks ago? I said, yes. He said, the guy's looking for you, so you better take off because you're gonna be in big trouble. And I asked him like, oh, where's the guy? He's like, he's over there. He's looking for you. I'm like, well, I want to meet him. And they're like, you crazy. And I am like, okay, I gotta go see him. And I went there, and he said, yeah, I wanna talk to you more. And good thing you're here. So then he pulled me a little bit on the side. We went, it's like a bank. So we went there and we started talking, and he asked me a lot of questions. He didn't tell me that he worked for refugees, but then later on, that's how he told me. He's like, he usually worked for refugees. He usually like help orphans to get better life. Like he usually work in Senegal and Kenya. I have no idea what he was doing in Cameroon. He wasn't in Cameroon working. I have no idea what he was doing in Cameroon, but he usually go to Kenya and Senegal and help kids to get foster parents and go continue their education. So when he asked me if I want to go to school, I start crying, and he's like, why? I'm like, because nobody ever asked me if I want to go to school except my parents. And he's like, do you want to go to school? I say, that's what I want to do. And he's like, what do you want to do? I said, I want to become a doctor. And he's like, okay. And that's how all the beginning started.
He helped you get to the United States of America.
Yes, and I never get to see him again. When they interview me for the first time and they give me a refugee status, he disappeared. I never see him again.
Do you know his name?
Yes, his name is Thibault, but I don't know his last name.
Have you tried to find him?
I tried. That was one of my projects in high school. My English teacher tell us to like write a letter to somebody that meant something to our life, and I wrote a letter to him, but I never get any answer back. I called in Cameroon, like the office that work for refugees, to ask. Like I asked about him, and they say they can't tell me where he is. They don't share his location.
Wow. It's almost like he's a spirit. It's almost like he's an angel.
Yeah.
Like he's an angel or something, you know?
Yeah, and that was it. I'm like, I wish I get to meet him one day. I wish he get my letter. I wish I get the answer back. And I never get anything.
I have a feeling it'll happen. What would you like to say to him if you were to see him?
I just want to tell him how amazing he is. I just want to tell him how he sees something that nobody ever see in me. And I just want to thank him for giving me a chance to be where I am today. And I'm grateful for him.
Jonathan, what did the man tell you about your parents that you didn't know?
He told me that my parents are not from Cameroon. And I never knew. As a kid, we don't have those conversations with our parents. We don't try to find out where they come from. We don't try to find out where is the origin country, why did they here? We don't know. So when he come back, he's like, my parents fled a war in Chad and then crossed Chad border to the north side of Cameroon and located where I was born.
So they were Chadian, you're Chadian, and because they were refugees from Chad, he realized that that made you a refugee and that helped your status in order to try and emigrate. Is that correct?
Yes. He told me that you are not Cameroonian. And during that time, I started getting upset. The reason I was upset is because I think I was 15, almost about 16 years old, and I was a runner. So that's another story, that somebody discovered that I can run and bring me from nowhere to be able to compete against other kids, and so I can represent Cameroon in track and field.
So you were on the Cameroonian track team.
Yes.
Wow.
And when he told me that, he said, "You are not Cameroonian." I'm like, "No, you're kidding." He's like, "Yes, but you're not gonna get in trouble. All you have to do is you're gonna go to the authority, give them all the paperwork that you have for Cameroon. We're gonna assign you a new ID, and you're a refugee, and you're from Chad. You are not from Cameroon because your parents are refugee in Cameroon."
It's amazing. It's amazing that, you know, this is the power of one person, really. You know, he decided that, you know, he saw something in you. You picked up the passport. He was impressed with that. Then he talked to you. He was impressed even more that you wanted to go to school. And then on his own, he did research to find out about your parents, that they were refugees. You realized that qualified you to, you know, get asylum, to request to be to emigrate, to be a refugee, and all this from an interaction with one individual. It's really, really amazing. It's almost like he was your personal angel in a way.
Yeah, at some point I'm like, I don't know what happened, but it's hard to tell. Whatever happened, hopefully I figure it out one day, and if not, it's okay.
Yeah. So let me ask you, you know, there's a big process to go through to emigrate, you know, to have refugee status and then to leave the country and to go to another country. When you were finally told that you were going to Boise, Idaho, is that someplace that you knew about, heard about, had to look up on a map?
No, in fact, you know, when my process started, I was 16. Like I think I was 15 and I just turned 16 when we started the entire project. We started entire paperwork, and it took me about 2 years to pass the immigration interview and finally get a decision that I'm coming to the United States. I didn't know about Idaho. I have no idea. But when I was in Cameroon, they told me I was going to Washington, D.C. That's where they told me my destination is supposed to be. I don't know.
That's where I grew up.
Oh, okay. But I don't know why that destination get switched when I get to New York. And they say you go to Boise, Idaho, and I'm like, where is that? First, something on my head, I'm like, are they sending me back to Africa, country that I don't know? Or are they sending me to Europe? Like, where are they sending me? And they said there's potatoes. That's the first thing they told me.
Well, fast forward and you went to Bora High School in Boise, and you were a runner there, and you started to get into the health professions. You wanted to become an EMT.
Yeah, it was quite a journey, and I did that journey by myself this time, because the journey I did back then home was kind of a journey that I started by myself and then end up finding people in my way. But the journey I started at Bora, I feel like I started doing that with a lot of people that already see things that I probably don't see on me. Bora coach get me started there, just finding me running again, and just follow me around and then come talk to me. And then he's like, do you want to go to school? And then I say, yeah, I want to go to school. And then he's like, yeah, you can go to school here and run for Bora. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the life I was looking for. And that's how my journey started at Bora. So I graduated from Bora again. There's a lot of people involved, and those people been there for me. I graduated from Bora, and I went to college. And then I come back here and get in Boise. That's when I started the EMT career.
Why did you want to go into healthcare so badly? What was it about it that attracted you?
Just the sense of helping people is one of my great desire. It's like, I feel like I can't do anything else to help people, and I don't have enough resources to hand out to people. And I think knowing or being in a healthcare is the best thing, it's the best skills to have, because then you helping somebody that needed help to get better. You have kind of an energy, some positive energy that people want to see, like things that people want to hear. Sometimes sharing your experience a little bit with people kind of lift them up, and they're like, wow, I think I had a crazy life, but I feel like it's good to hear that somebody else also like have this kind of experience. And all those things are something that's very valuable to me. Be able to help somebody that cannot help themselves is very important to me. My mom did it. My mom was a nurse back home, and she helps a lot of people. And just the fact that you're helping people without expecting anything back is the best thing ever.
She really influenced you, didn't she?
Yes, she's my role model every day.
And then you decided to start your own company, my goodness. And you now have 10 people. You have a medical transport company, and you take people to their appointments. You went from living on the streets in Cameroon as an 11-year-old, and now really it's not that much longer. I mean, you're only 26, and here you have your own business with 10 employees.
Yes, it was quite a journey when I started my EMT. When I was going there, I thought I have enough resources to start a class, but then at the end, I was very struggling. And that time I was working at the Y, and that's where I met Julianne. As you guys all know, Julianne worked for IRC, and our conversation was very brief, and she was very interested in listening to me talk, which is that's what drew my attention. I'm like, maybe I should share with her more what I'm doing. So that's what I bring in the EMT thing, and then she was like, oh, really? And then she's like, yeah, and I said yes, and I tell her a little bit why I'm working so much so I can pay for my EMT and whatnot. And then she's like, well, here's my number, and call me or email me or something. I know somebody that's working with refugees and help people with the resources regarding like workforce development. And I sat on that card for like a week. And then something hit in my head. It's like, wait, this lady told you to email her, so why don't you email her? And then she emailed me back, and then we scheduled a phone call. And the next thing I know is my EMT gift class getting paid when I was almost about to drop out because I couldn't pay. And that was a very magical moment. And that's what I know is this class going to be worth it or something. And right after that class, I met my instructor worked for a company that hired EMT to drive non-emergency medical transport. So right after I finished with that class, she told me if I want to come work with her. And that's how I started. That's how I learned about medical transport. And I get my inspiration from there. And I'm like, I'm going to do something similar, but a different approach. And that's why I decided to start drafting my business plan, saving money. During that time, I was working like 3-4 jobs. Being in America allow you to dream big. You get to see things that you never seen before. You get to meet people that you never met before, and it just draw down to what is out there and how you're going to use it. I never imagined one day I'm going to have my own business and somehow medical business, right? Like medical transport. No, but I just follow my thoughts, follow the resources that are available out there. I ask a lot of advice. I can walk to anybody and say, hey, what do you think about this? It doesn't matter if you're gonna give me a positive answer or you're gonna give me a negative answer, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm the one that's gonna make the decision, but I still wanna hear your opinion. What do you think about this? I'm curious about this, tell me more, right? So I did that a lot, and that also helped me to come up with a decision or like, even though you live on the street before, you're only 11 years old, now you're here, your past cannot determine what you want to be in the future. And you have to sometimes take your life on your own hand and go from there. It's not going to be easy, but you can make it happen.
And for those times when it's not easy, what do you draw on? What helps you? What are some of your touchstones that you go back to? Sounds like one of them is to remember that you got through some other hard times and you will again. Another is to ask for advice. But what other things help you during these massive 180s that you've made in your life? Is faith one of them, for instance, religion?
Yes, and that's the part that I want to touch. It's very important to be faithful. It's very important to be hopeful and understand that there's somebody out there that you should trust, and that's your God. It doesn't matter if you go to church every day, or you go once a week, or you go every 3-4 months. Just the fact that you can fall back into your beliefs, doesn't matter whatever you believe, right? As long as you can fall back to it and say, hey, you brought me here and I'm leaving everything into your hand and take me from there. And I trust you. When you tell yourself, when you tell somebody that you believe in, or whatever religion you believe in, it's very important to do so. And with that, it creates a positive outcome for you. Because if you wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm gonna do this, but I don't know how it's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen, right? For me, it's like, I'm going to do this, and I trust you, and please help me get there. And that's very important, to have a faith on everything you do and believe in everything you do.
You mentioned running. It's a big part of your life. Is exercise something that also grounds you and helps you during these very stressful times? I know you also cycle.
Yes, that's a very good point, and it's a big thing for me. Running, being an athlete, shaped the way I think. It shaped the way I do things. I apply every discipline that I learned during my athletic. You have to be at a practice on time. You have to go there and work hard in order to compete hard. Because what's going to be the outcome if you don't go there and you don't work hard? You're not going to be happy during your competition. All you're going to do is like, okay, this didn't work, right? And you're going to be disappointed to yourself. So it's like, I apply every single discipline that I learned from running, exercising, I apply in real life. And that helps a lot.
Jonathan, have you experienced racism in Boise? And if so, how has that manifested itself and how have you dealt with it?
Oh, that's a hard topic one. I remember briefly when I was in high school, I counted a couple kids that did something, and I didn't think about it back then, that it was sort of telling me that I don't belong where I am in. And it was a brief moment, and I never tell anybody. I think until like I graduated from high school, and I just feel like they don't know what they're doing, and I forgive them. I was sitting at the cafeteria eating, and three guys walked by me and throw some banana on me, and I guess what I did? I took this banana and I ate them. Right? Whatever they want to do, whatever they're thinking, that's not me. I deal with this thing like back home. Like people rejected me, people tell me I don't belong here. I overcome all those. So giving me a banana, you're giving me food. You're thinking you're giving me a message saying that I don't belong here, but for me, you're giving me food. So thank you for that. And couple of things that I still struggle with, and this is as a business owner, is how people sometimes told me, oh, you should hire a white person to do your marketing because you're Black. If you walk to anybody and tell them like, hey, you're doing this, people would not trust you, and people would think you're gonna steal the information to do things. And like people tell me those things, and like it's kind of like an advice that they're giving me that I should hire somebody or I should hand the business to like a white person in order for me to be able to have enough clients. I feel like that's very insulting.
Yeah, it's almost like the advice itself is racist.
Yeah, so I'm
You know?
like, people need this service. I hope they don't see my color. I hope they see my heart, like why I want to do this thing. And so far, I mean, most people I talk to, I end up working with them. I talk to St. Luke's, they're working with me. I talk to St. Alphonsus, they're working with me. And so far, whatever advice that people is giving me, I think it's the opposite of what I'm getting. Yeah.
Great, that's good.
No.
You know, do it yourself. Do you follow the Black Lives Matter movement? Have you gotten involved in that at all?
I gotta be honest, I'm really scared of, especially now that I'm a business owner and I want my business to be successful, and I never told anybody this, and I hope I get opportunity to explain this, but I'm very scared that if I start getting involved with all these things, I might not be in the business. Then people would start feeling like, okay, now you come in America, we give you all this opportunity to be who you are. Now you kind of like think you were, I'm very scared about that. And I'm just learning a lot of things about myself lately, allow myself to be vulnerable, allow myself to express my feeling regarding things that I never done before. And that is helping a lot. And I think it is important to see what the Black Lives Matter is doing. And it's important that they are speaking out for those of us that still under the water and haven't come out yet.
That's a very eloquent way to put it. And I'm curious as well, when you came to the United States, what was your biggest surprise? What did you never expect that you encountered here?
I think the sense of community in Boise, I did not expect that. The sense of welcoming. And I can only speak for myself. I don't know about other people. And it was very touching that there's a people in Boise or Idaho or in the United States in general that care deeply about others, that want people to be successful and want us refugees to be part of the community, give us a second chance and allow us to explore certain things that we never explored before. So that was a big surprise for me that Boise welcomed me very, very well.
This is your family. Boise is your family.
Yes, and that's what I tell people. When people ask me, like, do you have a family here? I struggle with that question a lot. And I'm like, yeah, I have a family here. It's like mom and dad. I'm like, not really, but the community became my family. Mm. So, and I was like, oh, I see. And then they want to know more, and then they want to know more.
Jonathan, what's next for you? What's next for you, not only business-wise, but in your life in general? Where do you see yourself going?
What is next for me? That's a very good question. I have been working on a lot of projects. I want to be able to give back to the community, give back to people who need it the most. So I've been working on opening an orphanage in Cameroon.
Oh, an orphanage in Cameroon? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Oh, wow. To help help children like you so that they don't have to be on the street?
Yes, that's my goal. And I already have all that projects all set to go. It's just a matter of because I'm busy with the business part of it and I'm still working on my citizenship because I want to go there and stay there for a little bit longer to see the entire project start and be able to see how it start running. I'm thinking by December, I'll be able to get my citizenship. The business is going to start going and it's still going well at this time. At the end of the year, we might double the number of our employees. Right now we have 4 vehicles that are running. By the end of the year, or maybe the beginning of 2021, we'll be able to add either 3 more vehicles or we're gonna take our medical transport to the next level where we might have an ambulance start transporting, doing more like ambulance transport as well.
Jonathan, why did you name your business Sky Road? What does Sky Road mean? As you know, I worked in the non-emergency medical before, and I have seen other companies
their way to operate. And I want to bring something new, and I want to bring something beautiful. I want to bring something that resonate with people, and it's all about people. It's care about them. And one of the things that make me happy is traveling and looking at the sky at the same time. So I want to make this transport as best transport as possible. And what would happen during that transport would be you traveling and you're looking at the sky, and it's perfect. So sky road. So you're traveling on the road and you're looking at the sky. It's beautiful.
Well, I wish you wonderful travels on your road. May you see the sky all the time, and may the sun shine down on you on your path. I'm very grateful that you're in our community, making it better. And I'm also grateful that you took time out of your busy schedule to talk with me on the 180. And I'll let people know more about your business, and of course, let us know about the orphanage that you're raising money for. But Jonathan and Missa, thanks so much for talking with me on the 180, and all the best to you. Please stay safe.
Well, thank you so much for having me. People like you allow us to be out here and share with our journey with a lot of people. And I hope everybody watch it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.